Thursday, January the 16th. We're past, is it half time now for January? Half-line, right? Good morning, welcome to your perfect morning starter, the Morning Brief. I'm Kayode Okikilo, and we're live for you in the nation's commercial capital, Lagos.
I wonder what Kayode's countdown is to really. Maybe it's to something that happens on the phone towards the end of the month. But good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. Peace is priceless. A perfect day to reflect on the values of peace, particularly after the celebration of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. If you argue, perhaps you would want to speak with those who have become fatherless, widowers as a result of wars. Welcome to your perfect morning starter. I am Bukola Koka.
Thank you as always for joining us. I believe that the best music I've ever heard is the sound of alerts. I don't know about you. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Good morning.
Same thing everywhere.
Some people
beautiful.
put it on silence so that their neighbors or people around there will not hear. So nobody will know when anything comes
And
in.
some people delete it.
And you know it can be
So
quite,
that some people will not know.
You know it can be quite painful when you made some expenditure and then the debit comes like on the day you're expecting money. And then you're like, oh, why did they delay? Oh,
But, I mean, it's what it
right,
is.
it's beautiful.
You win,
Beautiful.
lose in that sense.
And some
it's a
people
back
it
and
really
forth.
doesn't make any difference because the money has been spent before it arrives.
Different strokes for different folks, right? Well, another sound which some people would really love to hear or not hear again is a sound of gunfires, sound of bombs, shells, sound of weeping, wailing. And I think that is the joy that those who have been affected by the Israel-Hamas war are feeling right now. Yes, it is not full just yet. That ceasefire set to take effect from Sunday. The Israeli parliament is expected to vote today. Some say they will support it anyway. But be that as it may, there are lots of people who are excited that finally Israel and Hamas have reached some sort of agreement, and the ceasefire is set to take off on Sunday after 15 months, guys, of fighting, killings.
After thousands of people, many of them children, have lost their lives after months of shelling of many towns in the Gaza Strip. As it comes through, it's also important to reflect on some sides to the conversation, with presidents trying to take credit for it. President Joe Biden, who is out in a few days, is saying, I own the framework, and it's been on from about May, and the result is what you're seeing now. But we didn't see that come through for a lot of months. But incoming President Trump, for the second time, had also begun to say on his social media handle that there's a huge deal, a historic deal that is coming through, and you're going to be seeing something unusual in the Middle East. And he's been threatening hell to be let loose if that doesn't come through. In the first part, we know that this was last 6 weeks, and we're hoping that it will be beyond 6 weeks. The hostage release deals on both sides of the divide, we hope that it will assuage fears and the pains on both sides of the divide, and there'll be peace in the Middle East.
Well, Trump can choose to take credit, Biden can choose to take credit, but for the people, just that sound of peace is what is relevant to them, and we're happy. 42 days is the corridor that is open for this deal, and hostages will be released on both sides, cross-board, and some of that details, of course, will come out eventually. So we must thank the nation of Qatar as well for being able to host this and broker this peace. It's a very volatile region. There's no guarantee that things may not escalate yet again in future. And my prayer is that in between all of this, things doesn't just go south, because they can broker this deal and this ceasefire, and somebody becomes recalcitrant.
Just right after that agreement was made, we've seen deaths yet again. We've seen the usual, attacks and the rest. So it just ties into what you said.
Yeah, so it's not just mutual suspicion. It's an environment with mutual suspicion. So Israel says it's surrounded by enemies. You have Lebanon in the north, you have Syria somewhere in the north, Jordan by the west, by the east, and you have Egypt on the south, and then the sea by somewhere in the west. So it's a very volatile region, so there's a strong sense of mutual suspicion. That is why everybody has to come on board to see. That's why we use the word relative peace to an extent. But we're happy that this is coming through. Some level of stability is required. Just imagine what is going on in that area. Some level of stability is required, and everybody just has to make sure that these 42 days, at least, nobody breaks it. Please let the people breathe for once, at least for 42 days. Then
and you know,
we can now know what happens
President
afterwards.
Trump's unusual approach to diplomacy, his belligerence, and you recall his role in the recognition of Israel, Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. I recall his departure from the norm kind of relations with the president of North Korea during his first term. So we hope really that his return as president will impact positively on foreign policy relations, particularly in the Middle East, to bring some form of stability without necessarily, intensifying suspicion on both sides of the divide, and without necessarily returning, the hatred that had been between neighbors, historical neighbors in the Arab states for a long time. We hope that really happens, because sometimes when you reflect on these things, peace is priceless, no matter what costs it comes at.
Absolutely.
So we hope that happens.
So 3 phases. We'll see how this plays out. The next phase, or the next negotiation, will begin on day 16 of this ceasefire. It starts on Sunday. So all eyes on the hostage release. Eventually, it will culminate into the retrieval of bodies of the hostages who have died, and then burying them. So we hope that we get some closure. But what's happening back here in Nigeria? Let's unfold what we have for you on the show this morning. And as you would expect, security is our first port of call. We'll be taking a closer look at the recent deadly attacks on security forces, farmers, fishermen, and civilians in general in Borno State, guys. You sort of wonder what is going on in Borno State. There's been this very dangerous trend, and that is where we're starting off on the show this morning.
We're still huge on security, as we will be going to Kaduna, Birnin-Gwari to be precise, to sort of understand what led to the peace deal that the governor has been able to broker, seeing return of commercial activities to that part of the state, and what it means in the long term for development in Birnin-Gwari.
I'm so excited with this Birnin-Gwari story, because this is what leadership is all about. I don't know how he did it, but whatever he did that is sustainable should be replicated. Peace, they say, is priceless. We're still on security, but this time we're going to get an expert to bring us up to speed as how to protect your home. It gives us all of these security tips on personal protection, all sorts of protection. But this time, how do you protect your home is the focus today on our security tips.
I'm sure if there was some sort of chain like that for people to buy to protect their house,
it's quite interesting, that picture, right?
But then we also get to sit down with 2 amazing young Nigerians. You see, the growing fintech sector in the country is revolutionizing payment systems landscape, and we'll have a chat with a couple of founders to talk about their journey. Starting up a startup is an extreme sport.
Yes.
So for those who are able to scale up gradually after plenty failures, it's worth showcasing, and we'll share their stories with you today.
Indeed, and we'll be renewing our ties yet again with our very beloved neighbors, Ghana, as we sit with Diana Hamilton, a Ghanaian singer making waves in the country, and of course also in the United Kingdom, I believe. So that conversation will finally come through today.
All right, so we will talk to you about what you're saying on X, our social media of choice, and of course what the newspapers are saying, which is where we're going to get started from, guys.
Absolutely.
Right now.
But don't forget, you can be part of the show on WhatsApp, so you can just send us a message right away. That is Bukola, what do you call that? The hand of fellowship?
Yeah, your words, exactly. You own the copyright.
But I think you did.
No, you did.
There you go. So
You didn't.
that's a hand of fellowship to you. Let us know what you think about the major talking points, both internationally and right here in Nigeria. If you've got questions that you maybe want us to help you get answers to, send them our way. And if you've got pictures or videos as well, hey, that is a number with which you can reach us. All right, let's get started with the dailies, guys.
Yes.
Where do we start from?
I think we should start with the Blueprint newspaper. The very top on that is military bans drone operations in the northeast, warns against violation. Legion Lord Sinibon welfare donate 150 million to widows. So that particular headline, for instance, I know that General Buba, Edward Buba had mentioned the issue of drones when he was doing a presser with journalists who covered defense of HQ rather, and they'd asked him about drones used by these terrorists. They said, well, it's of no strong significance. Did not necessarily deny that they use it, but they say it's nothing to worry about. So perhaps with the gains they're making in some part of the country and some of the resurgence we're seeing in places like Borno and the Lakurawa in Zamfara, just keep your drone in your house, because if you fly that drone, at least for now, they may bring it down. So I think it's just fair to kind of agree, at least if that will bring peace. If it's not perpetual, they may have to obey. Guys?
Well, there's one story there that should interest you, Jeffrey, and that's going to the bottom corner of the Blueprint newspaper. CPPE to National Assembly. Your obsession with revenue targets will hurt investment, increase poverty rather. And there are two riders there. Urge CBN to pause on policy tightening measures. Inflation hits 34.80% NBS. So, this causes us to think yet again about what the inflation figures will look like when the NBS eventually, announces it. We hope in a couple of days.
They've announced it already.
It's
34.8%, up from 34.6%.
It still went up.
It went up marginally. So those are the numbers. But I agree with CPPE because, I've been saying it. When you look at the budget, nothing clearly suggests to me, from where I sit, that productivity will be aggressively ramped up. What I see is what is called optimization. Simply, we'll be missing out on things that are available. Let's bring it into the space as much as possible. Not like opening as many shops as possible, opening more shops so that the production can really ramp up, that really generates employment. And where we're going to, which is the danger, we fell into that. It's not, I don't want to call it danger, but the people must be educated.
Yeah.
Our trade surplus is not because of productivity, it's because of money illusion, exchange rates. Now, when we rebase CPI and GDP, what may actually happen is what I call data illusion as well. So bringing more things in, and the number looks better in some sense, not because anything really happened, it's just because more things were added that are already existing.
So which comes first? Because clearly what this implies is there are people who are meant to be paying taxes right now, but are evading taxes, escaping it, flying below the radar, or underpaying taxes. So do we say, let's leave them and allow them keep doing that? So I think for those who support this, they say, let's bring everybody into the net. There are a lot of people who are meant to be paying tax, and I think the focus should be on the rich, naturally. So I think, which comes first? Get all the taxes collectible. That means more money in the purse. And I imagine a government with its heads on its shoulders would invest that in projects, infrastructure, which are the things that will then boost productivity, roads, power. That's if the government is thinking well and is able to be prudent with its spending. So I think that's the argument for those who say, let's get the taxes.
There's nothing wrong.
I imagine that's what the tax reform bill is
yes,
to address.
There's nothing wrong.
Productivity.
There's nothing wrong with approaching it. Is how you approach it. Because when you go and tell custom, I have increased from 5 trillion to 12 trillion. I know customs. People are going out of business because of customs activities in terms of importation, because they have to do their work. They have a template and all of that. Importation of cars. There are cars we bought for 2-point-something million. Now those cars are going for 10 million plus. Those are the things we're talking about. In a bid to drive and aggregate these resources, have a human face. That's what we're saying. Yeah. So both are good. But the aggression on one end kind of trumps the other. That's what we're saying.
And just at the top corner of the blueprint, you also find that NNPCL, only company that publishes 100% of
I thought we were moving to the next daily.
accounts. That's according to the group CEO of NNPCL Blueprint. But how do you have the next paper?
Yeah, let's move over now to, well, it's a business day. Business Day newspaper, since we're talking business and stuff. Business Day newspaper is the next for us this morning, and you see Nigeria to burned $10 billion subsidy savings on debt servicing. So, yeah. You know, I'll just allow you chew on that, digest that, understand that. Then we'll move on to the next daily. But yeah, $10 billion subsidy savings. You know, that question was raised in the National Assembly. The money saved from subsidy, what was it used for? And then that was when the minister said, well, let's have a closed door session. And guess what? After the closed door session at the National Assembly, none of them said anything about what was discussed. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is the same money that we all suffered, right? We suffered for the money now. Subsidy was removed, and all of us started paying, you know, higher prices for petrol. So when it's time to talk about what that money was used for, how much have we gotten so far, you shut the door on us. The same money that is our sweat. And I think that left a very bad taste in the mouth. So when you see headlines like this, it sort of just, you know, rubs pepper on that wound.
Very vivid description there, Kayode. Well, that conversation should also be held at the subnational level.
Right.
We hope that the doors will not be shut on Nigerians as well.
At some point.
Because you also find that there has been increase in FAC allocation to governors. But what are the benefits to the people, to these states, in terms of productivity, in terms of the expansion of the local economy in states? Because I always say the economy is not only determined 100% by what happens in terms of policy at the federal government level, but also at the state level. So have you profited from subsidy savings, increase in FAC allocation to your governor? What do you think about that? Send us your thoughts.
That was what I was saying. That was how I had a problem. It's a little problem with the aggression with optimization.
Right.
Because the one we have done already, the president is releasing money. But how is it going? Do you understand? So we've seen models that have not worked, not because the intentions are bad. So let's rethink. So
and you know,
$10 billion to service debt, which comes about 16 trillion. Our total budget, so that people understand what we're dealing with. Our total budget, 49, is about 30-something billion. We're now spend 10 in servicing debt. That's about almost 30% or so for the mathematics people and all of that. So, but the good part of it for me is the fact that we're not going to go to ways and means to be printing money. So we have provided for paying Agbese.
Good news in all of
Yes,
this.
we call it providing for paying Agbese.
Okay, since we're still talking the economy, this one will interest you. Let's go to the front page of Daily Independent this morning, and it says customers of 9 banks may not get alert. Others from January 27. Somebody may not like this one, but there's one writer
the show talking about alerts.
as NCC okays disconnection of banks from USSD platforms. You know that they're owing, and the debt goes way back, really, actually. So, well, I'll just leave you to, yes, 200 billion naira debt just at the top of that big story. So I'll leave you to reflect on that.
Yeah, you know,
perhaps you want to send your bank a message on X and ask them to pay so that you have some form of accountability and follow your money.
I think the way we're handling the telcos are tired. Say, oh, everybody owing us if you don't pay us. And NCC has said, please, if they don't pay your money, disconnect them.
So let me get this right. Banks that if you take loans from them and you don't pay, they get you.
They collect collateral.
Actually owing telcos. So let's be honest, there are some parts of those stories that people will never get, will never be told. And you know, that's what happens when you have deals behind closed doors, or some of these conversations happen at that high level. So this is one side of the story, I can bet you. But the other side, you'll probably never hear it.
And another side that I fail to understand is that the banks have returned profit, particularly in the year 2024. So why they're owing USSD, I really do not understand. Jeffrey, you have a fairer understanding of the economy. Perhaps
some of the things you will never hear outside.
Okay.
They've been owing. Let me even tell you the bad part. It's not as if they're just owing. they've been owing since. So they will come and explain themselves.
Yeah, so some of the things you will never hear the explanation.
Let's go to The Guardian. The Guardian is replete with Armed Forces Remembrance Day. War veterans, wives of fallen heroes, lament neglect despite promises. So we can see pictures there from different states. We've seen the vice president representing the president, the service chiefs, as well as we have some other states like Lagos, Bafemi Hamzat of Lagos, deputy governor of the state, as well as Peter Ndubisi Mba. That's the governor of Enugu State. Also releasing pigeons. So it was a day full of a lot of activities in the country, and we had quite an emotional journey with a veteran yesterday. We can never forget. I've never had such interview with a veteran that walked us through it, and it was quite touching. Just above it, we have Nigeria suffering from mismanagement, says Sanusi. We saw a video emerge yesterday. Say it's not going to help this government. If you act like friends, I'll be friends. I helped the government at the beginning, but now it's like they don't want my help. Perhaps I don't know whether that was what he implied, but I said they are my friends, so let them do what they have to do. If they need me, well, perhaps they know where they can find me.
There's a cartoon, Jeffrey, on page 12 of the Guardian newspaper, just to show our viewers that cartoon. Just at you can see that cartoon. So you see a man saying he has jetted off again for a Sustainability Week summit. In case you don't know who they're talking about President Tinubu, right? So his friend, I imagine, is walking away and said, no wonder they budget billions of naira for, and quote, chop and travel, so that every day can be Sustainability Day. If you read very well,
Sounds as an SAUCE.
Exactly. Sustainability Day.
I see the sarcasm.
Yeah. 32nd trip of President Bola Tinubu.
This 32, right?
Yeah.
So 2 in 16 days.
In
So if he does an average,
months.
yeah. So if he does an average of 2 in a month, that will come to about 24, right? Our presidents like to, and look, have you seen the president's jet? Look, he would love to travel. That's a jet, man. But well, if he's traveling to make the country better, why?
Absolutely.
But if it's not, if all of the trips is not bringing anything, then it's not necessary.
So we need to see the
If it
ROI.
brings something, then it's fine.
So there you have it, a look at the front pages. These conversations will definitely shape what we'll have for you on the show this morning. But we're starting off with that dangerous trend in the Borno state, northeast Nigeria. It's a lot coming together, and that's what we're starting with, or where we're starting off on the show this morning. So stay with us right here. It's the Morning Brief.
Welcome back. So security is top on our agenda this morning. The concern about what's happening in Nigeria's northeast and northwest is huge, and especially for important reason. In the northeast, we've heard reports of resettlement, of people being returned to their ancestral homeland with the construction of some buildings by Governor Professor Babagana Zulum. But now, particularly in the last couple of months, we've seen a resurgence of insurgency in Borno State. So what exactly is happening? Let's try to understand with this segment. And we have joining us Mr. Abdul Umar, who is an Assistant Inspector General of Police, Zone 16. He joins us from our studio in Kano. Good morning and welcome to the program, AIG Umar. We also have Dr. Kabir. Welcome, sir. Yeah. We also have Dr. Kabir Adamu, who is a Security Risk Management and Managing Director, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, who joins us via Zoom from Katsina. Good morning and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you and good morning.
So let's start off this way. One would have thought that the infighting between ISIL and Jan, that's Jama'atu Nasir, was, I'm not getting the full name correctly, but was gained in the Northeast, particularly with the peace that we've experienced in a couple of years in that part of the country. But we've now seen, with that suicide bombing some months ago, and now killings, in fact attacks on the soldiers in the Northeast. So what exactly is happening? How do we understand this resurgence? Why are they regrouping? I'm going to start with you, Dr. Kabir.
All right, thank you very much. And I must commend your station for highlighting this very complex and concerning development. No doubt, we've seen tremendous progress in the theater of operations in the northeast of the country. As you're aware, there is a military operation called Operation Hadinkai that has been active in Borno State for more than a decade, and several progress has been made. I'll divide them into two. The approach by the federal government, which is being led principally by the Operation Hadinkai, which is essentially a military operation. And then you have other socio-economic components, including the Northeast Development Commission, which attempts to address the root causes of insecurity by addressing unemployment, infrastructure development, and things like that. Then there is also the effort by the Borno state government. In particular, there is what is called the Borno model, which was introduced as far back as 2019. And as a result of the combination of that Borno model and some of the efforts by the federal government, over 120,000 members of the two principal groups, the Jamaat al-Ahl Sunnah al-Dawati wal Jihad and the Islamic State in West Africa province, as well as their family members, have surrendered. And that is progress in all ramifications. I must also mention that as a result of the efforts by the Borno state government, several of the IDP camps that used to exist in the state no longer exist. So all of that is progress. But then, like you rightly indicated, of recent, we've seen a resurgence of attacks by these two major groups. Now, there are some possible reasons for this. Number one is the climatic condition. When the rains end, movement becomes easier for these groups. During the raining season, it's a little bit difficult for them sometimes to move around, but the rains have ended now, and so they are able to move around. The second possible reason is that the military effort is being diverted. As you are aware, Northwest is a new theater of operation. The military has begun another operation called Operation Bansanyama in the Northwest. So it's very possible. I'm not saying anything confidential when I say that the boots on ground that we have and the equipment repository of the military is stretched. And so it's possible that there has been some reduction, as it were, in the Northeast to other operations. Number three is the strategic attacks that we've seen of recent by at least the Islamic State in West Africa province. You recall that in Dambua, specifically, they attacked a military forward operating base there. And now what that meant is that after that attack, a lot of the locations in the southern half of Borno now became vulnerable, because that was the only functional, as it were, forward operating base in that part of Borno state. So once they crippled it, it means Chibok, and that's why of recent you've seen several attacks in Chibok. At least just a few days ago, 2 churches have been bombed in Chibok. We've also seen an increase in attack in the northern half of Borno, and the possible reason for this is what happened in Chad. You recall that a few months ago, there were several operations in Chad. So it's possible that the operatives that were there have been dislocated back into Nigeria. And so they are attacking that northern fringe between the Lake Chad Basin and Borno State. And then, of course, the fourth element, rather, is the deterioration in the socio-economic conditions in the country. So what it means is that we are seeing several attacks by the two groups where they block highways, and what they do is to collect money or sometimes abduct travelers and then collect ransom from the persons they've abducted. And our understanding is that they are going to use those money to increase their operational capability. So these are some of the reasons for the resurgence in the northeast of the country. If we discuss other parts of the country, I could also explain why we're seeing the resurgence.
Quite revealing. The same question to you, AIG Umar. But let me put yours a bit in proper context because of the position that you hold. Why have they regrouped so easily, despite the gains that have been made in the last couple of years? Because the gains would suggest that they have been decimated, arrests that have been made have led to debriefing that has given leads to sponsors, and we've been hearing stories about those convicted for terrorism financing. Yet we're seeing that either ISIL or JAS, I prefer to call it JAS because the name is quite long and it's tongue twisting, are regrouping and they're causing mayhem yet again in Borno.
Thank you very much. Even though I've not heard the beginning of the program, indeed the security agencies have made a lot of effort to ensure that there is a peace in the northeast, particularly in Borno, where I was an AIG and Commissioner of Police. The effort of the military and the police and other security agencies cannot be overemphasized. These insurgents have been decimated, honestly, and now there is resurfacing. They are resurfacing, and basically we must have to look in depth, looking at all the indices that of managing crisis. The Boko Haram that have been decimated, some of them have actually surrendered. But we were skeptical at the initial beginning of the process, whether some are willing to surrender voluntarily or they are coming in to spy and go back. And honestly, what we discovered, few of them came in, understood the real situation on the ground, and maneuvered back to the bush. Even though they are few in number, because we had over 96,000 surrendered Boko Haram, with about 300 fighters, and the rest are coerced. Maybe they are wives and farmers of these insurgents. And now that they have been pushed to the wall, they crossed over, they took advantage of our porous borders, planned their games, and now they are coming in to give a surprise, because terrorists or insurgents, they are used to giving surprise attack. They undergo hit and run operation, and this is what we are witnessing. So the security agencies need to go back to the drawing board and ensure this porosity of the borders we are having, because we don't have them massively internally in Borno state, because Borno has been liberated initially over the years. 227 local government of Borno state were overtaken by these terrorists, but with the effort of the military and the other security agencies, virtually only about 2 local governments, to my knowledge, were not liberated. That is Baga and Guzamala. But I understood that Guzamala is the only local government that is not liberated. Baga have returned, and certainly the porosity is what is of a concern, and that is why they are coming into these isolated areas and committing havoc. The number of people they slaughtered in Baga almost getting to 60, and in Kukawa about 35 is worrisome. And the security agencies need to strategize. So we need to go back to the drawing board, actually. The coordination that we're having with the civilian JTF, hunters and vigilante, they master these areas of operation. And we are using them, both the military and the police, to scout for intelligence and balance the operation. The military need to re-engage and strategize. I don't know what is happening in the theater of operation right now, but this is one key and important suggestion, that we should collaborate and develop synergy. I remembered when we are in the theater of operation, actually both the Air Force, the soldiers and the police, the civil defense and the civilian JTF, we harmonized operation, and that was why we had this gain over time. The issue of them coming is is one of their attributes. They always give surprise attack, but considering the happening in Borno State, Borno has been liberated, and but we are always we won't be surprised that there's always this kind of surprise attack, what they come around and kill and go hit and run.
Right.
The Borno State government is equally doing its very best. I know the effort of His Excellency the Governor of Borno State, Babagana Professor Umar Zulum, is always responding to the request of the security agencies who masterminded the operation in the Quail to ensure that Borno remain peaceful. So the collaboration again with the state government is very, very key.
All right.
The traditional rulers are of utmost importance.
Well, Mr. Umar,
they know the hello?
yes, I mean, you're making a very vital point about the traditional rulers, right? But there are other issues that we would like to raise so we can cover as much ground on the show. And just before I quickly go back to Dr. Adamu, I'd like to ask you, because I recall right after the attack on the police station and the killings of officers in Borno, the IGP ordered the zonal AIG to deploy resources for swift action to basically arrest those perpetrators, in this case the terrorists. And you know, we've heard time and again how our men, the military this time around, some of them go to the theater and they are faced with superior firepower, you know, from the terrorists. That's the military. Now the police has been asked to go and apprehend those same people that we've heard have superior firepower. So first, I'd like you to confirm, is that indeed the case? Do we have superior firepower, or they have superior firepower? And how well is the police able to even play in this theater when the military itself looks like it's overwhelmed, having been moved largely to the northwest, where there's majorly another issue at hand?
Well, thank you very much. You see, I have mentioned the issue of synergy and collaboration. The IGP who gave this order is very, very right. Whenever there's an incident of this nature, the police need to go into it and unveil the circumstances behind it. And how do they do it? We are aware there's a declaration of state of emergency. In the theater of operation, the military takes the lead. And whatever we are going to do, or the police going to do, they need to collaborate with the police. There is no issue of superiority in firepower. The Nigerian military, as well as the police who are coming behind, have the capacity to deal with these insurgents. The issue is there are a lot of ungovernable spaces. These insurgents came in, give a surprise attack, which is hit and run, and they go back. The issue is, in most cases, whenever there is this kind of attack, the hit and run. So in most cases, except we have the intelligence, the Air Force use their wherewithal to ensure that these people are bombarded in their outskirts, in the bush. Otherwise, the issue of getting them arrested handy, it's always a difficult situation. I've been in the theater for almost 15 years. And whenever there's this attack, it's only with the effort of the Air Force that we are able to get them. We decimate them, we kill them, and because they do kill us. This incident that happened at Nganzai, it's only 2 policemen were killed, an inspector and one other, and I believe a civilian was equally shot. They fired a grenade.
Right.
You understand? It's not that they came closer and first. No, it's the use of IEDs. And that is their usual approach. I could remember in the beginning, whenever they want to attack a police station, they came with improvised IEDs, bombed the police station, and that overran the police station. So and that's what necessitated the coming
overall,
of the military.
You're saying overall that our forces, either military
yes.
or police, have superior firepower. Is that what you're saying? Overall, we have superior firepower.
Yes, of course, the military has superior power. Look, these insurgents, they only operate on the ground.
All right. Let me go to Dr. Adamu. Pardon me, AIG, so we can also get some other side to this. Dr. Adamu, perhaps you may want to respond to that point, because recently the CDS had also spoken about these terrorists being caught with dollars. In fact, we've had other chiefs, former chiefs, speaking to press, saying that they suspect either NGOs, other players in that field and vested interest as those responsible for also fueling this. So maybe you might want to respond to that point. But does it bother you that at this stage we're not able to say this is where this funding is coming from, these are the people funding it? Largely we're asking the UN, and it's understandable, but for a war we have tried to prosecute for this long, does it still bother you that we look like we're still back to square one, where we're trying to figure out who we are fighting against?
Coyote, we know the funding sources of this group, and I say this with all sense of responsibility. We have an agency of government called the Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit that has local as well as international capability for tracing illicit funding within Nigeria. And I've interacted with that agency. The current person who is heading that agency is innovative. I've seen reports, I've seen technology that she has introduced that allows the monitoring of illicit funding into Nigeria. So we do know, and I was a little bit surprised when the Chief of Defense Staff actually made that statement. Perhaps he speaks to this synergy that we're discussing. Is it that perhaps he's not aware of the functions of this agency? Or I'm not sure. Maybe when next you interact with him or any of his staff members, you can raise that question. So that's one. Number two is that the UN is actually present in Nigeria. Apart from the UN as a body, there are UN agencies, in particular the UNODC, that deals with crime, and especially organized crime. It monitors and releases reports consistently, including on Nigeria. If you go online now, just Google, not even any sophisticated, just Google it. You will see the reports by UNODC on illicit funding in Nigeria. The shadow economy that allows groups like the Jamaat al-Ahl al-Sunnah al-Dawati wal-Jihad and the Islamic State in West Africa province to operate, as well as the mechanisms with which they move their funding, is known to us. So I don't want us to move on that premise, Coyote, but this is a public forum, and people are listening both nationally and internationally. This thing is known. And that moves me to the next point, accountability within our security system. I've had the AIG, and as an expert, if I am doing an assessment, there are things I look at. He's talked about the capability of the terrorist groups. Now, if you know you have an adversary that has a capability, the only thing you should do is to block that capability. And frankly, it's not you and I'm a private practitioner, you are a journalist. That responsibility is not yours. Neither is it mine. It is the responsibility of the security agencies. If they are using IEDs to carry out their attacks, and recently they've started using drones, actually, so it is not my responsibility or your responsibility to prevent them from acquiring this capability and to use this methodology. It is the responsibility of the security agencies. This operation has been ongoing for more than a decade. Who are we waiting for to come and stop these capabilities? There are three oxygens, sorry, I'm using oxygens. There's nothing like that, but there are three, things that allow terrorism to thrive in any theater of conflict. Number one is the ability to recruit. Number two is the ability to acquire weaponry. And then number three is the ability to acquire funding for their various activities. Unless we look at these three things and block the oxygen that allows them to thrive, well, we're going to continue, unfortunately, these things for a very long time. And so this brings me to the role of the National Assembly. I think the National Assembly, as the arm of government that should be exercising oversight over the executive arm of government, needs to wake up to their responsibility. We can't continue to have this situation where today we make progress and then the next day we go back to where we are. And the reason is because of these three things I've mentioned. As long as we don't focus on blocking these three things, then unfortunately we're going to remain in these circumstances. I'm not a harbinger of bad news, but reality, sadly.
Zibi, let's come back to you. When you said the police has the capacity. I'm not going to argue that with you, but the military is really having a hard time, not to talk of the police. For instance, I think yesterday we got a report from Borno that a specified number of soldiers are missing. I think they went to recover some bodies. So I'm just trying to paint a vivid picture for you of what's playing out. And I know you know that environment pretty well, having been there for 15 years. What can the police do differently to help in this war? Because going head to head with terrorists, I don't know whether the police has that capacity. You may say they do, but I'm looking at the way it can be, because if something has happened for this long, as Dr. Kabiru has said, then we need to change strategy. What can the police do differently in terms of intelligence, being proactive?
Thank you very much. You see, the police has its own core mandates, while the military has their own. The duties of the police basically is internal, and apart from being internal, they equally collaborate and support the military. What we are saying is the military are fighting in the theater of operation, they are equally fighting with our mobile police. There's an injection of mobile police in the theater. They are equally at the forefront of the fight. And honestly, why we are saying that our police are capable, it's not issue of police fighting war. Under natural cause, police are not supposed to go and start fighting war. Those liberated areas need to be occupied by the police and ensure that civil authority is restored. This is what we are after. But due to when you see policemen engage in the fight, is part of the constitutional mandate that the police shall perform other military duties as may be assigned, and that is why the police are equally in the forefront. But the major responsibility of the police is to secure wherever the military have secured and liberated. The police are supposed to go there and ensure that there is civility in those areas. That is the capability, so that normalcy will be restored, activities by social activities by strife. The military, I still insist that the military has the capacity and have the ability to deal with all these insurgents. There is no superiority complex. The military, our own military, our own are far more superior. The issue of this fight, actually I've had the CDS, a very fine senior officer who was in the theater of operation. And the issue of funding is key. These terrorists have existed for this long, and the issue is, how are they getting brand new firearms? How are they getting new clean ammunitions? How are they being recovered after being disbanded?
CP, if I may,
found
CP,
them with,
just a moment, CP.
Dollars.
Can you hear me, sir? Dr. Kabiru had mentioned the fact that the sources of these terrorists, the funding sources, are known. So why do we keep repeating this? Where are they getting? Where are they getting? If there are people that know where they are getting.
No, I've not heard Kabiru because we're having a problem in the studio. It's only when you ask me I'm conversing with you, but okay. I've not been hearing anything from Kabiru. So I never knew that the matter had been discussed. But the issue of funding is key. The issue of recruitment is key, because they must have a space where they are being trained to come and fight this war. So, but what you asked me is the capability of the police. The police have the capability to ensure there is good policing in all the liberated areas. The police are not the ones fighting the war.
Okay. All right, AIG, let me take you to Mr. Kabiru. Mr. Kabiru, I want you to speak to intelligence here, because that's a space you play in. We have the NFIU, the DSS, the NSA's office, we have the NIA, all of these agencies that are supposed to be, their job is basically being proactive so that things don't escalate, because we're now seeing this resurgence. Is there a modification we need, or we're just not brutally honest enough to face this thing headlong, and that's why we're where we are?
Geoffrey, like I said earlier on, I'm a private player, and with all sense of responsibility, when I did the analysis for 2024, I realized that what is happening right now is going to happen. I say this with all sense of responsibility. And I took my time, wrote a letter to I'm not going to mention names, but to the various coordinators within the national security sector to advise them. In fact, I asked for a meeting so that we take steps to enhance intelligence and then to take preventive measures. Not a single of them responded to my letter. I followed up with phone calls. I know most of them personally, and I followed up. None of them responded. So the element here is one of accountability, right? Like you rightly indicated, we have at least about 10 agencies that have very strong intelligence capabilities and that are operational. That is when you don't even add the international component. We have liaison agreements, Geoffrey, with several countries of the world where they share intelligence with us. We share with them, they share with us. So I do not think it's a lack of intelligence. There is no security department of the 29 that we have that does not have an intelligence wing. In fact, let's even bring it home. Ministry of Interior that manages through the civil defense, the private security sector. Think about the number of private security operatives that we have in this country and their deployment. At the last time I checked, they are up to 10 million. So imagine a situation, Geoffrey, where we are harvesting the intelligence from these 10 million operatives through the civil defense. There is no house, there is no corporate office that I know of in Nigeria that does not have a private security department. So that if there is a crime in that location or any proximate location, that private security firm that is guarding that house or office would have knowledge of that crime. Now imagine if that is being harvested. So and we need to wake up. It's one of accountability. We have the resources, we have the capability, but we're not using it, sadly. And like I indicated, as a private player, I used the capabilities that I have. I did an analysis, I did a projection, and I saw, with AI, you can model what is going to happen in the next couple of months.
It's gone up again.
From what is been online.
I'm listening now.
Clearly the trajectory. And so once you see that trajectory, what the next thing to do is to prevent it. But where there's no accountability, where if you don't prevent it and it happens like it's happening at the moment and nobody is being held accountable, then sadly there is no compulsion, as it were. And I think that is where we need to look at. This is a call to the president directly to please strengthen accountability within the security sector. Let's start holding our security officials accountable. Otherwise, this thing will not end. I just told you that after an attack in Damboa, we are now seeing attacks in southern Borno. Even a 101 in security, in criminology, would know that this is going to happen as long as you have the intelligence capability to look at that strategic vision. Look at the map of Borno, see where Damboa is located, look at the forward operating bases that we have around that location, and then ask yourself, why is the Jamaat al-Ahli al-Dawati wal-Jihad or ISWAP attacking that particular forward operating base? Is it not to weaken its capability so that it cannot stop or prevent attacks in the locations that it's interested in? And then a few days after that, we now start seeing attack in those locations. So my point is we need to strengthen accountability. We have the intelligence capabilities, but for some reasons we're not using them judiciously. And it pains me. My heart is really aching under the circumstances that I saw this. It's going to happen. I wrote, nobody responded, and we're where we are. And frankly, nothing is being done to those that should have taken the action to prevent the attacks.
And this places a huge question mark on efforts claimed by the federal government to have dispensed with 1,700 terrorism cases, convicted 742 or thereabout terrorists, and in fact also dispensed with about 15 terrorism financing cases in May 2024. There should be more results in that area if these progresses are being made as claimed by the government. But we must thank you, gentlemen, as this is clearly an ongoing conversation. We've been talking with Mr. Abdul Umar, who is the Assistant Inspector General of Police, Zone 16, and former Commissioner of Police, Borno State, who joined us from our Kano studio. We've also had Dr. Kabir Adamu, a security risk management consultant and Managing Director, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, who joined us via Zoom from Katsina. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And there's more on security. This time we head to Kaduna State, where, on the contrary, and pleasantly so, there's good news to tell. So what's the template that Kaduna has deployed? Join us for answers after this time out.
Let's head over to Birnin-Gwari in Kaduna State. A once troubled area is now experiencing peace. And this is a trouble that has lasted for close to 10 years, or if someone will tell you it's even more than that, looking at the undercurrent. So how exactly is Birnin-Gwari able to resolve these issues? We're joined on the program by Mr. Zubair Idris, the Dam Masani of Birnin-Gwari, a public affairs analyst, and Dr. Isa Muhammad Galadima, the chairman, Birnin-Gwari Emirate Progressive Union. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the morning brief.
This morning.
Let me begin with Dr. Galadima, really, and just get a sense of what this is all about. For those who don't get the context, Birnin-Gwari's position is quite interesting. Yes, Birnin-Gwari has 16 districts. It is in the western part of Kaduna State, but it actually shares, borders with states like Katsina, Zamfara, even Niger State. So speak to us about what this really means. How did we get to this point? What was the situation then before now?
Good morning, and thank you for having me on the program. Birnin,
when you look at Birnin-Gwari,
located in Kaduna State, has been facing serious.
Did not address you directly.
Okay.
Please go ahead. You can land on that point.
Is an area in Kaduna State, as I said, it has been facing a lot of security challenges over 2 decades, precisely. A lot of things have happened. Painful memories, painful events have actually happened in that area. Ranging from abductions to killings of innocent lives, forcing people out of their farmlands, with the vast arable land of Birnin-Gwari local government area, agriculture being one of the biggest, economic venture in that area. A lot of people have been ejected, have been forced to stay out of their farmlands for over years. The stories are actually painful ones, such that one wouldn't want to recall. But happily, there is a shift towards peace over a couple of months with the intervention of government, precisely the federal government, under Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the efforts of the Kaduna State government led by Malam Obasani. And of course, the local leaders, the Emir of Birnin-Gwari, and a lot of, stakeholders there are actually, playing a vital role to see that peace has returned to Birnin-Gwari local government area.
Right. Let me go to Mr. Idris now. I know you had started making your point earlier on. But some people are curious about this peace still. Some had raised eyebrows saying, is what we're meant to have, a peace deal or justice? Because lots of people have died, a lot of people have been displaced, lost their property. So they say, can there really be peace without justice, or is this peace still coming first? Then we can say, okay, let's now seek justice for those who have either been killed or, you know, lost property. How do you speak to that? I hope you got me, Mr. Idris.
Breaking the... Yes?
Okay, please go ahead.
I said it's a kind of impossibility for someone to say that the carnage in Birnin-Gwari will be stopped abruptly as it happens about 2 months ago. It's as a result of the efforts by the government, meaning the state government, the local government, the emir and the traditional institutions, the community leaders, and also some of the leaders of this segment of the society, the bandits and the elders, even within the people who lives in the bush and have an enclave where kidnapping and for ransom and also abduction has been taking place for more than a decade. It is something that we say impossibilities, in the sense that when the process began 6 months ago, through the Office of the National Security Advisor and also the Kaduna State Governor, in fostering dialogue to reach out a truce between these warring communities or the people who are waging war on the communities, thereby paralyzing all activities and movement of people. So as a result of this dialogue, that people now embrace peace and agreed to lay down their arms and also to call for reintegration into the society. So this call for reintegration into the society gave way for peace to ensue in that area. So as a result of that dialogue and what have you, a lot of questions have been asked whether these people will adhere strictly to the peace agreement reached out with them. Because several peace initiatives were done with this group of people, but at the end of it all, they reneged on all these agreements reached with them. So that's why people were skeptical. Even those who are, you know, at the forefront of fostering this dialogue and also to have peace, to maintain peace in that area. As you ask, Dr. Galadima, yes, Birnin-Gwari, if you look at it, it has a conjoining forest from Kuyambana Forest to Kamuku Forest to the forest in Alawa in Niger State, which went straight to around Kachia, to Nasarawa Plateau, up to Cameroon. So you can see this place, the evils that, you know, evolved in those forests, in which people are being cajoled into this forest and also, being molested and what have you, in the case of women and children. And also some people who've been killed, some are chained and what have you. So people are now beginning to see that without dialogue, this thing will not continue. One, in the sense that the security forces are closing in on these, this bandits. So in the sense that also people doesn't have even money to pay for ransom. So even if they abduct people, they won't be able to get the money so that they can collect as ransom. So on the other hand, the supply chain of the arms and ammunition that they used to get were caught up by the security forces and other intelligence being used or being adopted by the security forces and also the communities. And it reached a stage whereby the communities are living in a kind of hopeless situation. And they now said the only way for us is to defend ourselves. So when the communities started to also acquire arms to defend themselves, then the terrorists also now realize that the danger in it is if people can defend themselves, so therefore the bloodshed will be too much. And that is why, you know, when the government brought out this issue of dialogue with them and also to have a lasting peace so that at least the economic activities can sprang up and also the farming activities, being an agrarian community, it can also develop so that at least we have food security in the area of Birnin-Gwari and the general area. So that was exactly what happened, and that's why we have the peace deal. And the component of the peace deal that the bandits should release all the people that they abducted without even having a single penny out of that. And out of that, at the first meeting, and the second meeting, it was agreed that anything that they cannot move an inch if they didn't even release those people in their captivity. At the first instance, 68 people were being released. Then later on, many other people were released. So Birnin-Gwari general area, it comprises not only Birnin-Gwari, but it encompasses the Giwa local government area, Chukun local government area, and part of Rapi local government area in Niger State. So you see, all those people breathe a fresh air as a result of this dialogue and peace initiative, as I said, initiated through the Office of the National Security Advisor and the Governor of Kaduna State, Obasani.
And it's quite cheery to note that people have been released, and the numbers too are quite comforting. But let's understand a bit more about this peace deal that the Birnin-Gwari Union is asking to be replicated. We understand that the committee comprises traditional rulers, government officials, and many other leaders within the Birnin-Gwari emirate itself. So how many bandits have surrendered? What was discovered in this process? There are perhaps those financing them. Then who are they? Are they members of the communities within the Emirates who have turned against the community? And then what is the program of reintegration? Because I believe Mr. Galadima also acknowledged that the people, it's still a bit shaky because people still have suspicion. I hope I got you correctly. So what program of reintegration is on ground such that these people do not return yet again to the trenches and take up their arms again? Mr. Galadima, that's for you. Mr. Galadima, that's for you. Can you hear me?
When Governor Obasani visited Birnin-Gwari last month to reopen the cattle international market in Birnin-Gwari, which has been closed for over 7 years, he promised that part of the reintegration program is to ensure that he builds a modern abattoir, market or abattoir, for the people of Birnin-Gwari, where these repentant bandits and other community people would be able to harness, and to use. So I think it's an ongoing process. The reintegration is an ongoing process which the government, I believe, is taken very serious, because when Bola Tinubu visited Birnin-Gwari in 2022, he said he has collected data, first-hand information for himself. He has seen the debilitating situation of the people there, and having collected the first-hand information by himself, I'm sure that the government has enough data, has enough information, and is ever ready to actually do the needful so that this peace deal will be sustained.
So talk to us about who these people are. Are they youths from the community? How many of them surrendered?
Well, a lot of them have surrendered. A very good number have surrendered. I cannot actually say how many for now, but I can tell you that a very good number of these repentant bandits have actually surrendered, and disarmament is ongoing. It's a gradual, process that has to be done phase by phase. And these people, the repentant bandits, actually are people, some of them are from that community that turn against the members of the community, while a lot of them have
Bingel and also some of the lieutenants of Kachela Ali Kawoje. Most of them, you know, they are the one who surrendered. About 10 of these warlords surrendered in Birnin-Gwari. So therefore, in order to see a lasting peace, there must be a kind of a reconciliation and also a victim support, you know, initiative, so that at least those reintegrated into the society will now have, you know, a kind of pre-movement and also interactions and social events, and they come back to normal. There must be a truce and reconciliation efforts, so that at least those that, you know, the victims can now forgive, you know, those who have, you know, molested them in all these 10 years of escalation of this crisis. At the end of it all, what we are looking for is to have a society whereby this kind of wound is healed permanently. And we're seeing, or we're hoping to see the kind of scenario that happened in Rwanda, when you have the Rwandan genocide, that, you know, the country come back from the shelves of all that carnage and also try to reintegrate the society together without talking about one ethnic group, that we are the Rwandans. So
well,
also in Birnin-Gwari, once we have this DDR, we'll have, you know, a barrel peace, we'll have a lasting peace in Birnin-Gwari general area.
Well, we wish the people of Birnin-Gwari the very best, and it's cheery to hear that peace is reigning. We have to thank you so much, Mr. Zubair Idris Damasani of Birnin-Gwari. Damasani, by the way, means knowledgeable, the knowledgeable, right? He's also a public affairs analyst. We've also been speaking with Dr. Issa Mohammed Galadima, Chairman, Birnin-Gwari Emirate Progressive Union, joining us from our Kano studio. I know that you've asked all the telcos and the banks to return, so perhaps we'll be checking in the coming weeks and days to see how well that goes. But thank you so much for your time. Well, we'll take a moment now on the show, well, on that cheery note, I should say, and we'll turn our attention to what is trending. That's the moment, and Jeffrey takes it up.
All right, so welcome back. Let's talk about what you've been talking about on X, which is our social media of choice. And there's a lot that's been going on there. So let's begin with what happened yesterday. The Armed Forces Remembrance and Celebration Day happened across every state in Nigeria. The nation's capital, Abuja, was also busy with that activity. The vice president representing the president was there to carry out the duty of the president at the National Arcade. And Yase Sekome says, God bless the armed forces, and may the souls of our fallen heroes continue to rest gallantly. Sir Taha, you say, God bless our Nigerian army. It's not a small sacrifice. May Allah continue to protect our gallant, grant the families of those who have lost their beloved the fortitude to bear the loss. So we want to say again to our armed forces, thank you for your service and for all you do. And for those who have lost loved ones, we also ask that God gives you the grace to bear the loss. Okay, yesterday we had a conversation as part of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day with the military as well as veterans, people they call the Nigerian Legion. The secretary of that legion in Lagos was here with us, and we did ask him some questions. And we did ask him, will he allow his children to join the army? And in looking at the state of things in Nigeria, he said, no, I can't allow my children to join Nigerian army. 76-year-old veteran said that right here on the show. These were your responses to that comment by the elderly man. Jasper Aniet Lewis says, It pains me a lot whenever I see old people crying about their welfare after serving this country. Yes, payment of pension and gratuity is supposed to be faster than allocations and senators' allowances. I pity Nigerian civil servants. So that's your thought, Mr. Lewis. Kolade, you say their welfare needs great improvement. Otherwise, interest to join will be extremely low. Still on the issue of welfare, safety cabal. He said this is not a good experience, and you actually attention the Nigerian Defense Headquarters and every handle that has to do with the Nigerian military. Please prioritize the welfare of the people. And I think, and that's quite apt. Let's take a listen. For those of you who were not part of the show yesterday, just watch this.
I never recommend any of my child to join Nigerian Army for now. Why? Because I am the father. They are seeing me now that my life is not to their expectation. They will want me to be higher than this, full of joy and every other thing that can make them to be happy. I will now encourage them to go and join the army. I have 2 graduates now. I said, never you think of going to the army. If you want to join, maybe Navy or Air Force. I've not been in there, but I've been seeing them and I've been hearing about them. They were treated better than Nigerian Army because we know we are ground soldiers.
So those were his exact words. It says Nigerian Army, no, no. Navy, Air Force, maybe, but Nigerian Army, no, no. The reason is simple. If outcome is how you make a decision, look at me, and you can see for himself. You can see for yourself why he said what he said, and that got a lot of people talking about the improvement of the welfare of men who have given their lives and women who have given their lives in service of our nation and protection of our sovereignty. I think that's just enough said by him. Okay, we've talked about the ceasefire as we began the show, and you've been responding to ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, given that war that's going on in the Gaza Strip. And Masha Aliyu Yahya, he said, Mashallah, this is good news. Hostages released and war stops. No winner, every side has suffered enough, most especially families that lost loved ones. War is never a solution. I totally agree. War is never a solution. Never can ever be a solution. Ademola, he said, it's a shame they can't come up with a permanent deal to avoid wars and learn to respect each other's rights and differences and coexist in peace without hate and bigotry. Lives lost, property damage, and traumatized survivors. I pray for peace and the deal to hold between them. That is a prayer all of us have, so nobody goes against this deal in between. And they are going to start brokering the next phase of the deal and 16 days into the 42 days. Okay, let's go to the inflation numbers now that was released yesterday. Nigeria inflation numbers rose marginally. It used to be 34.6. It's now 34.8. That's in December. Remember, they are rebasing the GDP as well as the CPI, which were where we get the headline inflation and all other forms of inflation. Yinka Daniel, you say, the rising inflationary trends will not abate anytime soon as long as root causes remains unsolved. High fuel costs for maintenance of machinery, equipment and vehicles affecting transport expenses for goods and services, unstable FX rates, farmlands acquisition by bandits. So just giving a flurry of reasons why this is not going away anytime soon. Obuzo said a lot of people don't understand the meaning of this high inflation. This is reason why you have a stampede for sharing food. This is extremely dangerous for us as a country. What the president says is going to get to 15%. A lot of us doubt whether that's even a possibility. Akogbo Paul says Nigeria current inflation is more than 34.8%. We're talking about 50%. Why lie to citizens? Since the federal government increased fuel, which goes up by 1,100 or 1,080 naira, depending on the fuel station you buy, everything increases. The price of commodities has not dropped. So those are actually some of the thoughts we've been tracking on X, which is our social media of choice as far as this is concerned. And just keep it coming. We're here to make sure that we amplify your voice. But hey, away from what's been trending and what you've been talking about, let's talk about security. Now, We've talked about the north, we're talking about Birnin-Gwari and Borno, but this time we want to talk about how you can keep your home safe. And joining us on the program is a security consultant, CEO, the Barricade Executive Protection Limited, expert in national defense equipment, Mr. Ademola Adetubero. Mr. Adetubero, thank you so much. Looking good as always.
Thank you.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
So let's begin with some of the tips that you've always shared with us. We put up a picture of literally having chains holding the house, but that was just to amplify what we're trying to talk about. I know that's not what you're talking about. So how best do we protect our homes? Maybe begin with some of the things you've highlighted.
Okay, thank you so much for having me once again. Happy New Year to viewers, and thank you, Uncle. So how best can we protect our properties? I'll just share some safety tips with us. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about this morning is how you can strengthen your door post, your door lock, and your property. And how can you do that? 3S. C. You see 3S. That is C. Speak and secure. C that talks about installing cameras, installing smart cameras in your property. Speak there talks about using video doorbells, so that you don't have to open your door. You can actually talk through the video doorbell to the person out there that want to gain entrance into your property. Then the secure there talks about enabling motion sensor, so that once someone comes into your perimeter, you get a notification on your mobile device, and that immediately you can tell if you want the person and if you don't want the person. So that is number one. Number two, tips I'm going to leave with us is protect, plan, protect, and prepare. Plan, prepare, protect. When it comes to emergency preparedness, so it's not enough for you to have all of this, to have the fire extinguishers, to know what to do. So the first thing is to map out, your exit path. Okay, I've spoken about the smart surveillance system. See, speak, secure. Can we go to the next one?
Yeah, we can go to the next one. Just keep going.
Okay, so strengthen entry point, lock, reinforce, protect. What do I mean by lock? Use deadbolt locks, as you can see on the presentation. Reinforce your window locks and shatterproof films. At the moment, the only way where the home burglars, how they come in is through the windows, because most of the time now our burglary proof are weak. So you want to reinforce your burglary proof. You want to protect. You want to inspect and strengthen every spot regularly. You want to protect and strengthen every force regularly. The next one, please.
All right, just go ahead, Mr. Adetubero. Yes, just go ahead.
The next one is lighting as a deterrent. Lighting as a deterrent. And how can you use lighting as a deterrent? Light stops intruders. Light stops intruders. So you want to ensure that you lighten every dark spot in your around your property. You want to use indoor timers. Indoor timer is an element of surprise, because when someone comes to your door, either your doorpost or into your property, and the indoor timer comes on, once it sees them, right, is an element of surprise which you can use to deter, instill fear, in the intruder. So light, dark spot.
Just a moment.
And the last one.
Just a moment. Just before you get to the last one, I want you to be able to capture this economic strata of everybody. Some of this thing looks like for people who have the means to have some of these things. Some people can't put on their security light. You've got the power bill now. Some people don't have the resources. They don't have the resources, for instance, to be able to do some of the technology you're talking about. So I would like you to look at those set of people as well as the haves and the have-nots.
Thank you so much. I actually thought about everyone, and that's why these tips we have brought, it's something that it's at the average. It's on the average. It's something everyone. Smart cameras are not that expensive. Security is not cheap. Security requires planning. Security requires budget, not only for the country, even at the home front. So it's something everyone needs to pay attention to. So what I've done is to ensure that all these tips are what everyone, if you plan towards it, they can achieve it because they are not that expensive.
All right, I know you have the last one. I wanted you to land on that last one before we wrap up.
So the last one is emergency preparedness. And there you have to use the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps, the first P is to plan, which is to map out your exit path. Don't wait until it happens, plan ahead. We're not praying it will happen, but just plan for it. So the first thing is to plan, map out your exit path. The second thing is to prepare, which means run safety drills. Run safety drills with your family, let even your children, your wife, probably when you're not at home, let everyone know what to do. Let everyone get acquaintance, with what to do. Then the last thing is to protect, which means what? You prep your safety kit. Get familiar with your safety kit. You want to do that. Thank you so much.
We must thank you so much for giving all of these tips, and we'll keep calling on you time and again to help us out. Security consultant, CEO, the Barricade Executive Protection Limited, expert in national defense equipment, Ademola Adetuberu. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you. All right, we'll take a quick break now from all of that, and we'll be talking fintech. Some gentlemen who are doing great things, and they're building as far as that hub is concerned. I'll be joining my colleagues in just a moment. Join us again.
Looks like we're searching for the next unicorn at this point, and we have 2 gentlemen joining us in our studio, and they're doing some great work in the fintech space, which I must say, dealing with startups and trying to scale it up is like extreme sport in this part of the world. So how are they faring? Well, in the studio today is Justice Soboye, CEO and co-founder, Billbox, as well as his partner, Abdulaziz Ogunjobi, CTO, co-founder of Billbox as well. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Are you tech bros, by the way?
You can say that.
It's to say. Because like a cool thing now, you have to be a tech bro. I'm first curious about your relationship before we talk about the work and your journey. How long have you both been together as partners?
So we met in 2019. Yeah, and we've worked together ever since.
2019, so that's 5-6 years now.
Yeah, ever.
Interesting. So you have interesting journeys. You've done things and moved on. You've probably done some things that failed and all of that. So in a minute, I'd like you to walk us through the journey of the typical Nigerian tech bro startup guy. And I'll start with you, Justice, before I come to AZ. Good. Right. So just talk us through the journey, because it's quite different in Nigeria, right, than in other climes. Nigeria, as I said, is extreme sport, but you still fly. So walk us through your journey.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having us, by the way. So, like I mentioned, AZ and I met in 2019. Prior to that, we're actually building startups, independently. And when we met, we found synergy, right? So the startup journey oftentimes, should begin with a clear problem, right? A clear problem statement, one that is, has the clarity around it, as it were, right? And the next thing is you want to sort of create a solution that sort of addresses that problem. And of course, problems come in diverse forms, as it were, right? And I think this is one place where Nigeria, for a fact, is where you would never run short of, problems.
Where
right?
problems in abundance.
Yes, so while people might sort of take a flight because of that, some bold entrepreneurs like ourselves, we approach it because, again, the flip side of it is there is a potential upside solving such problems, as it were, right? So then, once the problem is identified, you want to sort of find a solution that addresses that problem, right? And oftentimes, I know many entrepreneurs tend to miss that bit, right? Where they sometimes they've created a solution and they're looking for a problem it solves. Oftentimes, ordinarily, you should start with a problem, clear problem statement, and then you create a solution that addresses it. Okay. Right? Now, this is where oftentimes the technology comes in. A solution is then sort of put in a product, right? You sort of crystallize that solution in a product, a tech product, oftentimes, right?
Interesting. But I want you to tell us, how many things have you done and failed before you got to this point, before I go to Abdulaziz?
So I'll put it at 2 startups.
Yeah.
2 startups now, right? And interestingly, I think the failures happen to be the ones that led us to what we currently are doing today.
Interesting. So Abdulaziz, your turn.
Yeah, so I'll come from a realistic standpoint. When you're young and you see guys building stuff, so there's this new technology, shining stuff, and you want to build stuff. Now, you're a first-time founder. You're not very practical. You're overly optimistic. So you're building a product that most likely would not work, would not scale. It's fine. It's just the typical journey. So you do that, you fail. Then you realize that it's not about the excitement. It's not about the bubble. You have to then come back to find a real problem to solve. So an average entrepreneur in the tech space would build certain products that will fail before they identify what will work. And this is why most VCs would want to back second-time or third-time founders, because they know the first-time founders are overly ambitious. This is not to say that you cannot get it the first time, but on an average. So for startups I've built that have failed, mine is interesting.
Do you have more under your belt?
I started building. My first startup was Face Your Book in 2011. I was just listening to channels, and someone was saying the kids now do Facebook instead of face their book. And I was like, oh, good, this is going to change the world. I started building one past question application that failed, but I built something else. I built a lot of stuff, like 4 stuff before I built Simbi. Simbi is an AI solution. This was way in 2017-18 when AI was not even this buzzy. So, but here we are. Again, failure is myself and failure 5 and 6.
But you're becoming a success story gradually,
Yeah,
particularly with your partnership. So what was that thing that was challenging, seemingly a failure, that now led you to what is now thriving?
Okay, let me take that. We met at an acceleration program where I was building something different. It was building something different. And then just one conversation, we knew, no, we need to do something together. And then the first thing we're doing together was the first thing we actually made success out of, which is an auto tech solution, then Carido, which is sold to Cas45. After a while, we came back again, we did something else, which we left, and now we're doing ViewBox. So together, it's better. An average founder should get a solid co-founder so that they can actually build amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Don't be overly optimistic.
And so just to put it, I think one critical factor to sort of, translate your failures into success is also finding the right partnership. I mean, it can't be overrated. The right partnership gets you, the odds of success are actually higher once you're actually in the right partnership.
So we can safely describe both of you as fintech soulmates, right? So in that space, there is a payment option, there is a lending option, which is becoming popular now in all platforms. But I think payment, according to statistics, is getting more of the financing, from those who are funding fintechs. So tell us what the potential is in that space. And I'm coming to you, Justice. Are they just looking wrongly in the space of payment, or is there more that can be done in the fintech space?
Yeah, so I don't think payment is necessarily overrated, right? So for us, for instance, we particularly support SMEs, right? And for an SME to thrive, right, the only way they can actually capture value is if they can actually get payments through. And for us, we understand that the timeliness of payment is also quite a critical one, right? So today we support SMEs that actually sort of, deal with other enterprises. And one thing that we sort of realized, having also been there ourselves, is a situation where when an SME actually does business with a larger enterprise, payment doesn't necessarily come on time, right? Because again, the bigger enterprise have their payment terms, so if it's oftentimes on a deferred payment basis. However, that time to payment, which could be 30 days, 45 days, or 60 days, could actually, I mean, some SMEs don't survive that, window, as it were, right? Because they literally are thriving on every cash flow they can sort of glean. And so what we then have done today is to build a solution that expedites the time to payment for these SMEs, such that we can actually unlock liquidity on the back of that future cash flow that is anchored on a credible enterprise they deal with. And we've seen that actually sort of save a lot of SMEs today, where they can then carry on business without sort of threatened. I mean, they are threatened by the fact that, I can't even meet payroll, I can't pay certain bills just because there's a future cash flow, but I have ongoing present obligations to sort of satisfy. So I think payment is not overrated, because in the long run, businesses can only thrive if they can actually make good on payments. So it's not, trade happens, but the upside eventually is where payment sort of helps consolidate the trade, and that's where value essentially is sort of, solidified, as it were. So I think, yes, funding in the direction of payment is necessarily not overrated, but I think interestingly, we're also seeing funding in other areas. You mentioned lending, for instance. I mean, access to credit is essential for every business to thrive, and I can tell for a fact that a lot of SMEs, including ourselves, we're actually making giant strides in ensuring there is enough access, for SMEs to be able to carry on their business. Access to credit, yeah.
Very interesting. AZ, I'll come to you, but first, people then say, that means there's money in this Nigeria, right? Because it looks like we keep saying fintechs, payments. So obviously, I mean, there can't be payment platforms without money, right? So that says one thing, there is money in this space. And I think from time to time, your ideas or people who are very driven like yours, they begin to show us that light. But I want to ask you a very tricky question, because we've seen Peace Square. So you see where this is going, right? How does your relationship work? Because I see both of you, maybe you're like best of buds, but people will say, very soon now, I hope we won't begin to see issues. So how do you maintain that relationship and also ensure that you're professional, you're cordial, you're able to tell yourselves the truth, disagree without being disagreeable, Jojo and not Wowo? I could go on and on. So is it?
So research has shown that one major reason for startup failure is co-founder conflict. Right. So first is we're aware it is something that we've seen. We know it is a fact. But for myself and my co-founder, we literally are like in this relationship that is as close as what we are to our spouses. So he's married, I'm married, but somehow my wife feels I thought we just as well as we speak at home. So we also don't restrict having fun conversations.
Yeah.
We don't do it openly. So everyone thinks everything is cool, but we fight a lot.
Right.
We disagree a lot. When we're in the larger room and everyone thinks, so Ized has said this, just as he's saying yes, we probably have said yes and no 2 hours for like 30 minutes back and forth. So it's nothing personal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If he's saying no and I'm saying yes, it's for the vision of the success that we both crave.
Yeah.
So it's just see it from my angle,
yeah.
I see it from your side. So we're aware. Awareness is very important to know that it is a real thing that can actually break us and then have these conversations in private.
Fantastic. One sentence each to that startup guy who's probably struggling. What would you tell them right now? Justice.
Absolutely. Resilience is key, and it must be anchored on a clear conviction of what you actually are building.
Is it?
Be consistent, but know when to pivot.
There you go. Your story is amazing. I mean, securing $1.6 million pre-seed funding. I think that's really great. And we wish you the very best. We've been speaking with Justice Abaye, CEO and co-founder of Billbox, Abdulaziz Ogunjobi, AZ. CTO and co-founder at Billbox as well. Maybe we'll talk about that $1.6 million much later.
Right.
But we'll take a moment now. So, I mean, you've heard that. If you're a startup, just keep doing your thing. But Jeffrey is back, and we have a special music and the performer for you. So you take a listen to the music, and then we'll meet the person behind the music. Stay with us.
welcome back. Let's now switch gears to talk about music and the voice and the face. We'll get to meet her right now. Her name is Diana Hamilton. She's a gospel artist joining us from Accra in Ghana. Thank you so much for coming on the program, Diana.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually joining you from Kumasi.
Oh, Kumasi.
I'm supposed to be I'm usually in Accra, but I'm in Kumasi this week.
That's in the Ashanti region, right?
It is. Well done to you.
All right, fantastic. So I was listening to your song. So tell us, what is it? Are you a singer that tells stories or a storyteller that sings?
Okay, that's an interesting one. A singer that tells stories or a storyteller that sings. I'm just a Jesus girl with a message that I happen to put out there with the voice God has given me. And that's just about it. Sometimes it has a story, sometimes it's just a message. But the most important thing is it gets out there and people are blessed by it.
So tell us how would you describe your own sound? Because in these days, there was a time, it has tapered a bit, but there was a time people were saying there's no such thing as gospel music. It's just music. Gospel can be reggae, gospel can be hip hop, gospel can be this. So how would you describe your own sound? I know you say you're a Jesus girl, but let's talk about music and sound.
Right. So for me, it's the message, and I think I've been in this journey for such a long time that I've picked different things. But whatever it is, you will get my Ghanaian high life in there. The message doesn't change, but you get the highlight bit popping in from time to time throughout every song that I put out there. But it can be ballad, but you still feel the high life. It's just always that guitar, just doing the job in there.
So how far-reaching do you think your message has been? Because every question I ask you, there's always that message element. How far-reaching has this message been for you? If you want to, some level of metrics to measure how impactful your sound has been to the lives of people.
It's amazing. I think to be able to quantify it, it's not possible. And the reason why I know that is, yes, in these days you have YouTube, you have iTunes, you would have the figures and the numbers, but those are just things that they have. But it's when you've walked into a room or you've walked into an environment you think no one knows you, and somebody walks up to you with a testimony, with just an excitement to see you because of how impactful. And just yesterday, I was walking down a staircase and somebody said to me, your song has taken me through some difficult times. And the thing is, I don't know this person and how well she even knows these metrics, but it's just how the message has been a blessing to them. The reality behind the message, the relatability of the message that we put out there. The fact that it's not fictional, it's practical, it's relatable, it's assuring, it's a message of faith, it's a message of hope. And it's just, yes, we have the figures. You will get the billboards coming in as you're the most listened to gospel artist in the world, from Ghana, and the fact that you're the best singer, you're this, you pick all the awards. But the thing is, the people who are being blessed by it, I don't think we can ever quantify the reach that we make. God does.
All right, as we're going to wind down, let's do an assessment of your understanding of the Ghana music space, especially the gospel subgenre, as far as that is concerned. What will be your assessment, and what needs to be done for some level of, would I call it ubiquity on the African continent, just like Nigeria has done with our sound?
I think we've come a long way. When I say we've come a long way, I've been doing this since, I would say professionally, since I was 14. So I have been doing this for over 30 years. and I have seen the growth. I have seen the change. I have seen how far we're going and how far we have come up until now. And are we there yet? No, we're not. I don't think Nigeria is even there yet. But we are breaking barriers. We are making inroads. And it's just a matter of pushing harder. It's just a matter of working and being consistent and keeping the message. I know you'd say, I keep coming back to the message, but the authenticity of our sound, of the message that we put out there is what will reach and be a blessing to the nations around us.
I'm also curious, just like I do something away from the serious stuff, I'm also curious about your name, Diana Hamilton. Is Hamilton a Ghanaian name, or just walk us through that?
Right, so I am married. Before I got married, I was Diana Nchibwesiaku. And I think that's very Ghanaian.
Absolutely.
But I met my husband, who was named after. There's a tribe in Ghana. There's a group of people in Ghana called the Fantis, and these are they're by the coast, and that's where all the colonial and the foreigners came in the times where there was slavery, and they lived around the coast. And the people in the central region and some parts of the greater Accra region ended up taking some names of the English. So you'd have Hamilton, which is, I think, Scottish. You would have Hammond. You would have lots of other names. And my husband was named
Duncan
after a Fanti. Duncan, thank you very much. McEwen, I know a Ghanaian who's McEwen. And so these are names that were picked up. My husband was named after such a person with that name. And my husband's name is Joseph Okoye Hamilton. I think the Okoye should have been his surname, but there was a mix-up. And here I am with Diana Hamilton.
All right, fantastic.
In England.
Fantastic. Let's walk through your catalog so far. Just a body of work. How many albums? How many? Yes, that part. And what exactly is up your sleeve in 2025?
Right. I have 6 albums and a whole lot of singles that haven't even gone on an album yet. We started this, like I said, when I was 14. But I think at the moment I can see you playing Adum, Grace. I've just done a collaboration with Mercy Chinwo in Nigeria. We did the recording away from each other, but we were able to meet for a video. That's the doing of the Lord. And just now I have The Perfect God, which is, I think you just played a few minutes before. By the grace of God, we have songs. We have Monio that top the billboards. It's just been amazing. It's been a great journey that I have absolutely loved doing. But 6 albums, so many singles. Some of the songs you would know will be Adum that you're playing now, Doing of the Lord, Monio, and now Perfect God, Wasem, and it's just, the list goes on and on.
All right, just as we just wind down now, let's talk about consistency. Anybody that has done anything for 30 years must have a secret, must have something to tell somebody who wants to do it. There's a story to tell. There's something to tell a younger person who wants to do something for 30 years and is still doing it after 30 years, starting off as a teenager. What would they be if you were to give 3 things?
Okay. You must love it. You must love it. I'm a nurse by profession, and then music found me. But I always say this, that if I'm ever asked to choose, I won't bat an eyelid. I would do music, even though I love my nursing. So you must love it, but you also must work on it. And it is what working on it, being consistent with it, is what makes you perfect, makes you stand out. And love the God behind what you're doing, which is, for me, it's gospel I'm doing, and it's Jesus Christ, Him crucified, Him exalted, the gospel. I have a depth of knowledge in what you're doing, and work with the best to the best of your ability. Stay consistent, love it, and watch for God do.
We have 30 seconds. We have
trust in the Lord.
Okay. We just have 30 seconds. Maybe you do something for us in 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That's all we have. 30 seconds.
All right. So my new song, which says, God says, I am human, born of a human woman. I have my flaws. I do have my flaws. I have my imperfections, insecurities, things that get me down. Those are some flaws, just to mention a few. But I serve a God who is faultless, who is blameless. He is flawless. He is perfect in all of his ways. And he loves me anyways. He loves me regardless. He loves me, doesn't matter. See, he loves me regardless. And he loves me, he doesn't care. God bless you.
All right, so much to choose from you. Great performance. You gave us a 30-minute show. Thank you. Dada Hamilton, musician, gospel artist, joining us from the Ashanti region in Kumasi. Thank you so much, and we wish you the very best and stay consistent. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to come on, and make sure you follow me on all my handles. God bless you.
Absolutely.
You.
All right, so hey, that's it with Dana Hamilton. So I had to ask her a question because some of these names, we have similarities. Kayode and Bukola, we have some similarities in places like River State, where you have names like Whites, I call it Long John, West, Green, Taribo West, coastal areas. So when I saw the name, I was like, okay, let me find out what exactly it is, and voila!
It's quite interesting.
Duncan Williams, remember that preacher?
Right?
Yeah.
It's quite interesting if you trace some of the names back. Even Port Harcourt. Port Harcourt is the name.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting how that history is just intertwined. Some would say, just leave it like that.
If you came to Lagos too, you'll find some names that are interesting too, that have
Viva.
taken from our colonial masters, even from the slave trade.
All right, that's it on the program. Thank you so much. Tomorrow is the last stretch for the week. I'm Jeffrey, who's on.
Sunrise Daily is up next. I am Bukola Koka.
Yes, you can tell we don't want to go, but we have to go. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Kayode Kikile. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.